Alrighty, welcome back to the Silent Hill 3 commentary with me, Solidus-Skully, and today we're in for some more fun-filled Otherworld shenanigans in Silent Hill 3. One thing I'm also going to use this commentary for is also to give a bit of a refresher course, so to speak, on many of the gameplay mechanics that we see throughout Silent Hill. And of course, one just happens to drop from the sky itself with the radio, and for those of you who don't know what it does in Silent Hill, it's basically something of a sonar used to detect monsters, but anyway, we have a cutscene coming up, and there's also a helicopter that's flying by my house, so I might have to stop talking for a little bit, until it passes. Enjoy!
Is this a dream? It's gotta be. Not even a kid could believe in this. But when am I going to wake up?
Yeah, if you couldn't tell, Silent Hill 3 pulls no— Jesus Christ! Yeah, Silent Hill 3 pulls no punches. I mean, in Silent Hill 1 and 2, you spent a fair amount of time in the, well, I guess, quote-unquote, normal world. Yeah, Silent Hill 3, fuck that, man. It throws you right into the other world. Excuse me. God, don't know, I feel really coffee for some reason, but yeah, anyway, duck in here, get some health drinks, also a save point, so you're pretty good on that end. And yeah, going over the radio once again, it acts as sort of a sonar to allow you to detect the monsters within the darkness, although it's, to some people it might seem as more of a pointless mechanic, since, you know, the monsters usually have some pretty decent tells, so you can tell what they are, whether or not they're closes, or double heads, depending upon the noise they make, you know, closes being more squelchy, so to speak. Excuse me. And, of course, the double heads sounding more like dogs, so it's not entirely useless, because the ambience that is seen with the radio does really put you on edge, surprisingly. There is also an interesting combat mechanic that I'd actually like to talk about, and I think I might have picked it up a little bit earlier in the last part, although I'm not too sure. But there are some new gameplay mechanics thrown on top. I did mention in the first part that there is a new item mechanic which has your items separated into several different subcategories. There's, you know, the items themselves, which are mostly used for puzzles, then there's the supplies, which I think is mostly health drinks, ampoules, you know, that sort of thing. And then, of course, you know, you also have your weapons, which, again, that's pretty obvious what that details. Before I continue on, flashlight gimmick. Really like this little puzzle you have to figure out. Don't know where the hell the flashlight is, unless of course you played the game before, in which case you should know where it is, but of course, we play a little game of turn off the lights, and you will find the flashlight pretty quickly. Fuck me, I gotta stop coughing. Now, anyway, to go back onto what I was talking about earlier, one of the gimmicks that was included with Silent Hill 3, which isn't really used to that decent of effect, is the beef jerky. I might have picked some up before in the normal world storeroom, but to go over what it does, basically what Silent Hill 3 tried to do is that it wanted to introduce a mechanic where Heather would be able to use beef jerky to distract monsters such as doubleheads and, well, a monster that you'll soon see in the next few, not the next few chapters, in the next few sequences of the game, to distract the monsters. Doesn't really work very well, but, you know, you do what you can. This is actually a shout out to the Leonard Rhine toilet store from Silent Hill 1. It's a very sly reference, actually, but, you know. And speaking of Silent Hill references, this is one that I think fans of Silent Hill 2 will get a kick out of, so enjoy the cutscene, kiddies.
Oh, forget it. This is way too gross. Who would even think of doing something so disgusting?
For those of you wondering where that comes from, play Silent Hill 2. You will never look at a dirty toilet the same way again. But in any case, to go along with what I was talking about before, with the beef jerky mechanic, I don't think it works very well because Silent Hill 3 doesn't really have many situations where you could really apply the beef jerky to distract the monsters with, and I don't want to say that there's no attempt at stealth mechanics here, because, you know, all Silent Hill games have had that to some respect, where if you turn off the flashlight and, you know, move very, very carefully, you can quite easily, well, not quite easily, but you can avoid the monsters if you want to play patiently. But the problem is, though, it's typically quicker to just run by the creatures in and of itself, and, you know, even though some of the monsters can be very annoying, which I will cover actually when we get to the hospital area, it's something where I think this sort of mechanic probably would have worked better in a game like Forbidden Siren, for example, rather than Silent Hill 3, or at least any Silent Hill game in general, really. Oh, actually no, Shattered Memories might have put it to good use, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But, I don't know, the beef jerky mechanic I feel probably could have used a bit more thought, and that does kind of go into one of my criticisms of Silent Hill 3, where its combat feels a little bit bloated. But again, that's something I want to get to later, since I don't think it's really applicable in the first area of the game, since, you know, you just get into grips with everything. I guess most of my criticisms mostly really apply to the hospital area. But then again, I don't want anybody to take this as me saying that I dislike Silent Hill 3 at all, because I really don't. Like, I do enjoy Silent Hill 3 quite a bit, even though at the beginning of the commentary I did say it was my least favourite out of the Team Silent games, but I must reiterate, I do not by any means think of it as a bad game. I mean, there's so much to like here, and I'm going to be pointing that out, actually, so I'll can the negativity for now and just talk about the positivity, like Heather's resourcefulness, which is something I actually really do like about her character. Like, you know, I don't think somebody like Murphy Pendleton wouldn't have gotten the idea to use a coat hanger to pull that down. Ugh, like, I've got some criticisms with Silent Hill Downpour about that, let me tell you. Oh, by the way, interesting cutscene that's coming up next, if my video editor is correct. Can't really see it, of course, but it actually does have some very interesting trivia, which I'm gonna half talk about, but I'll also talk about where it's a little bit more applicable, because there is a very interesting story behind it. Anyway, this looks very familiar. Staticky TV, inside a mall. Let's see. If you listen very, very carefully in that cutscene, you could actually hear the faint voice of Sandra Wayne, who, for those of you who don't know, was the voice of Cheryl Mason in Silent Hill 1, and considering that Heather Mason is related to Harry, I think you can probably already start to connect the dots as to what's going on down here. Interesting bit of trivia, which I can only half talk about here since I think it's a more interesting tale a little bit later on. Silent Hill 3 for the PlayStation 2, and possibly the Xbox version as well, I cannot really confirm that. Yeah, Silent Hill 3 for the PlayStation 2 is the only version of the game which I believe has some of the Silent Hill 1 voice clips still in there. Because later on you will hear Harry Mason, as voiced by Michael G., telling some of his lines from Silent Hill 1, which is a very interesting detail that was omitted from the PC and possibly the Xbox versions. Again, not really too sure about that, but it was omitted for the reasons that I can only really say when we get to a certain cutscene later on, because I feel that it's really a lot more applicable there since we have the voice actress herself who, let's just say, didn't really like the fact that they were taking lines from Silent Hill 1 too much. Again, it's a bunch of legal jargon that I think, well, a lot of people lost their shit over when the Silent Hill HD collection came out. Actually, that is a very good point. I'm wondering if they redubbed the Silent Hill 1 lines in the HD collection. Keep in mind, knowing of the infamous reputation of the Silent Hill HD collections, I didn't buy them because, well, I already had a PS2 copy of Silent Hills 2 and 3 anyway, so, Actually, I suppose while we're on the subject of Silent Hill voice acting, the new voices I honestly don't mind that much. I mean, granted, I prefer the originals a hell of a lot more, but, new voices were okay, although to be perfectly honest, you couldn't really tell them apart from any other anime dub that they've done. I don't know. Anyway, what is this? Oh, it looks like we just stopped in time for dinner. My headset is falling off my head. I don't know why. Hopefully this doesn't fuck up the audio. Barbecue dog. By the way, this was actually Team Silent's, I think, tongue-in-cheek joke towards how a lot of Western people like to make fun of the fact that people in China like to eat dogs, which, you know, fair dues to them, it's a delicacy, but god damn, Team Silent were fucking sassy. I suppose probably Hiroyuki Iwaki was probably throwing that in since he was the game's writer. I gotta say though, like actually, I've been doing a bit of playing through Silent Hill actually, both through 1 and through 2 and 3, which are very, very different stylistically. I mean, I pointed it out beforehand in part 1, but there's something about the way in which Keiichiro Toyama, who directed Silent Hill 1, versus 2 and 3, which were done by Hiroyuki Iwaki, which feels very different in its own unique little way. And a lot of people might not realize that, but there is something alienating about Silent Hill 1's story compared to 2 and 3, which I feel was kind of lost in the games that came since, but I don't know. My video editor is lagging again. Please excuse me while I correct this fault. Okay, things seem to be okay-ish again. Yeah, I had a complete tangent, then I kind of fucked up my... Basically, I just ran out of things to say and I stumbled, which I really want to avoid, because Silent Hill 1 was plagued with that shit all the time, and I really don't want to run out of things to say. Or just stumble over my words like I usually do. Anyway, as such, considering that I want to make this a little bit more of a tighter commentary than I have done in years past, the steel pipe. My trusty old steel pipe. My favourite Silent Hill weapon of all time, actually. I don't know, it's always there for me. Cradles me during the lonely nights. Allows me to bash a monster's skull and fulfill the violent desires inside me. In any case, though, I guess to give more detail as to what we're doing, for those of you who have not seen any Silent Hill commentaries that I've done, which is the one, really, basically, we're gathering around puzzle items to unlock a door at the top of the 3rd floor of the shopping center, which is gonna lead us to our final boss fight. Yeah, it's pretty typical Silent Hill affair. You usually have an area, then there's another world version of it, have to solve some puzzles, find some creepy stuff inside it, bada bing, you do the thing, and get scared. In any case, another thing that I've also come prepared to do with, you know, to avoid running out of content is, of course, talking about the symbolism of some of the monsters, which I feel I can talk about, since I think in this game you also do kind of discover with Hertha, and if not, play Silent Hill 3. This is one of those sorts of games that I can't recommend enough that you play for yourself before watching a commentary on, because oftentimes I've noticed that typically with a lot of Silent Hill playthroughs it becomes sort of a game of spot the symbolism, and I think usually if you try and keep things spoiler-free, you can't really talk about, you know, the game itself properly, or at the very least without being somewhat annoying about it, because for people who've never played Silent Hill before, one thing I've noticed is that a lot of people tend to be like, yeah, this game isn't scary, mostly because, you know, you have people talking over it, and you also have, you know, people pointing out the symbolism and what everything means, rather than you trying to figure it out for yourself. Chemicals with Heather Mason. By the way, don't do this in school, kids. I did that once. There's a reason why I failed science. Yeah, anyway, for those of you wondering what this did, it basically... there's a whole room full of moths, I think, and you stay in there and the moths basically eat you. So yeah, you use the chemicals, turn on the fan, and of course, bada bing, you do the thing, butterflies are dead, and of course, Heather fails her chemistry class. Or succeeds because she killed the science teacher. I'm sure Alessa would be very proud. Actually, no, she wouldn't, because the Silent Hill movie is bad. In any case, though, time for some symbolism explanations. Again, as I was going to mention earlier before I got distracted, I'm going to be talking about some of the symbolism with some of the creatures as well. This might spoil the game a little bit, which is why I had that little disclaimer of playing the game for yourself, but again, today we're going to be talking about the closer. Think of this as the follow-up to the Silent Hill creature feature, which I never finished, but I'm going to do with this one regardless, because why not? It's time for a little send-up. Anyway, the symbolism with the closer, which, for those of you who haven't seen it before, is that monster with the 2 meaty palms, right there actually. Yeah, it represents Dahlia Gillespie's abuse towards Alessa, and if you're wondering how that ties into Heather, you'll find out later. But in many ways, if you'll remember Claudia, who we just met a little bit earlier, it also reflects Claudia's past, as she too had suffered abuse in her childhood. A lot of what that means we'll get to a little bit later, but there's also another bit of interesting trivia regarding the closer, in fact that it had an unused climbing animation, where it showed that it had nails inside of its little mound. By mound I mean its fist, not mound as in, you know, certain lovely objects. But yeah, basically it was going to be able to climb up surfaces, and the player probably would have shit themselves. Shit would have come out their ass. Anyway, bada bing, we use this nutcracker, and we get a little gemstone inside, which basically increases the value of walnuts, as you will find mystical gemstones in here. By the way, notice that there's also some human shapes on those, bed straps. Yes, so I'm sure there's some reasonable things going on over here. Could it be symbolic of Valessa's imprisonment? Who knows? Yes, the answer is yes. Also, another bit of Jesus fucking Christ, the schism noise fucking terrifies me, man. Another bit of interesting trivia, actually, with the mall itself. Again, fuck me, that noise is so goddamn scary, annoying, and ugh. Anyway, there is some symbolism behind the mall itself, actually, reflecting the emptiness of Heather herself. What I mean by that, you'll find out a little bit later. I hate having to say that because it sounds like the whole I'll explain later sort of thing. But again, it reflects the emptiness of the Heather identity, and with the whole Otherworld wall remaining vacant compared to the real-world version, which was filled with all sorts of shops and, basically stuff inside it, it is very symbolic as to Heather's character. But again, you'll find that out later. I don't know, Silent Hill 3 has some very, very interesting symbolism. Some of it, or at the very least some of it that's detailed by fans, I do think is a little bit off the mark or up to interpretation. Not quite in the same sense of, oh, well, I guess it's up to every single person with their own unique outlook on it, but more so in the sense of, I guess just people trying to figure out the symbolism for themselves, really. I mean, there was the Book of Lost Memories, which was basically detailing a lot of what Silent Hill symbolism was, you know, a bunch of Team Silent interviews, but where's the fun in that? I've always loved speculating about Silent Hill. It's what made the series really fun, and part of the reason why I'm not entirely cynical on the later games in the series, you know, despite people pretty much discerning the franchise from this point onwards. Like, I mean, Silent Hill 4 somewhat gets a pass because that was developed by Team Silent. But yeah, good luck finding people who defend pretty much any game except for, you know, possibly Shattered Memories and maybe Downpour if they're feeling generous. Hailing up from the 100th day and night. Fuck it, I'm not gonna read this. Anyway, we have escaped from the closer, who was probably going to give us a very meaty hug. And you can see the beef jerky right there, which... not very well used. Place a moonstone inside there. Ouchies! Yeah, by the way, the closers hurt, if you couldn't tell, because their punches quack? Yeah, they quack. The closers are actually ducks, believe it or not. Whack. Oh, this commentary is going swimmingly. But yeah, enemies in Silent Hill 3 hurt. Which kind of goes without saying, really, but... in a general sense, you'd kind of want to avoid damage, although you do have a bulletproof vest, as I picked up earlier, which does diminish the damage somewhat, but yeah, be on your guard, because Silent Hill 3 is a very combat-heavy game, which is part of why they included the beef jerky mechanic, even though I don't really think it works that well, since stealth isn't really Silent Hill's forte. I don't know. I guess probably that's part of why I think Forbidden Siren probably would have been the direction the series should have headed in, like, after... I guess after Silent Hill 4, but I don't know, I guess that probably would have happened if Keiichiro Toyama stuck around for the series. Which he didn't, and that makes me very sad. Anyway, we're actually coming close to the end of the mall segment, so enjoy this cutscene and we'll get to our first boss of the game. Fans of Silent Hill 1 probably remember what this is, but this is the Split Worm, which is a reimagining of the Split Head boss fight, which was a giant lizard. This is a giant snake slug thing. Symbolism behind this is actually very interesting. A lot of people actually theorize that this monster was actually created based on Heather's first sexual experience. You know, the head opens up, obviously referring to vaginal stuff, and the phallic-like object of its penis is, again, reflective of a penis. But yeah, in terms of strategies, it's pretty much similar to the split head boss fight in Silent Hill 1. Wait for it to show up, wait for it to open its head, and blast away. I really do like the design of it though. Like, I mean, not for phallic reasons obviously, but it's a very creepy boss fight, and I think, much like in Silent Hill 1, if you let it get close to you, it can instant kill you with this giant head, so keep on your toes. But it's not too difficult of a boss fight because you have a lot of room to run around in, so you should be fine just so long as you know when to shoot and just keep your wits about you. On normal mode, it's actually pretty easy. On hard mode, though, it does take quite a few shots, so be careful. I don't quite remember if it has any additional attacks, though, depending upon the difficulty. It might not, but then again, I can't really say for certain. But anyway, much like Harry Mason, who said, "I will kill the lizard," Heather has lived up to her father's legacy. You wear the Mason name proud, my dear. Sorry, I only cry at weddings. I do. I'm a fucking sap.
What? It's the shopping mall just like before. Am I back?
It was all just a dream. So yeah, everything's back to normal, life and colour have been restored to the world, and since I probably won't have another chance to mention it anywhere else, I'm gonna talk about a little bit more trivia. You can actually find posters of Silent Hill 2 in the normal world, shopping center. Pretty weird, but it's nice. Anyway, we're gonna stop into a Happy Burger, which is obviously a reference to Burger King, or if you're a local Australian, you'd know that as Hungry Jack's. Why the name was changed, I can't remember, but yeah, let's go off and get ourselves delicious chicken tender crisp. Oh, yum yum. But yeah, this is pretty much a place where you can gather a little bit more health and ammo, save up, and basically just rest up a bit before you go to the next cutscene and then the next area. Anyway, I don't know if I have much chance to talk, so on that note, I am Skully, keep it new metal, and I'll see you next time in the Silent Hill 3 commentary. Bye-bye.
Heather!
It's you.
What just happened?
You must be one of them!
What did I do? And what do you mean by one of them?
You're in on this with that Claudia, aren't you?
Claudia? What about her? She asked me to find you, that's all.
So you are one of them.
Claudia did all that? Look, I was just hired to find you. I'm not on anybody's side. I don't know anything about this. Why don't you start by telling me what happened here? And that monster, what the hell was that?
I don't know any more than you do. All I know is that things are getting really screwy around here, and I got a weird feeling it's got something to do with me. Maybe you're just an innocent bystander, but I can't feel sorry for you because you dragged me into this. You know, if you hadn't found me...
What are you talking about? What's so special about you anyway?
If I knew that, I wouldn't be so confused, would I? But I know there's something. Something I've been running from and forgot for a long time. How did I remember that?
What's wrong?
Nothing.
Where are you going?
I'm taking the subway home.
What should I do?
Hell if I know.